Good.
So I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Ellie,
And this is a presentation on
aka Baking with Calculus.
So our mission is to prove that baked goods are more delectable if they make sense.
Which we will prove through the calculus we did, finding how long it takes to heat up an oven as well as its rate of change at specific points, to find the volume of freshly baked cupcakes, and to find the differences in diameters of cookies under special circumstances. So first, before we could even start baking, we wanted to learn more about our oven. So I sat and I watched it as it heated up to 375 degrees. And I checked the temperature at every couple of minutes, just whenever it jumped enough for me to feel like it was worth writing down. The only issue I had there was that my oven didn't tell me a temperature below 100 degrees. So this was approximately the temperature of my kitchen when I started. So I don't know that that's 100% accurate, but it was close. So I then took these points and I plotted them into my calculator and found a line of best fit, which was a quartic function, and that is here. I then took the derivative of that so we could see the rate of change of the temperature at a specific point. And that specific point I picked was exactly halfway through the heating up cycle, which was at 7.5 minutes. And I found that rate of change to be 22.748 degrees Fahrenheit per minute. I then wanted to compare that to the average rate of change, which I found to be 20.48 degrees per minute over the whole heating up process, which I thought was pretty close. So that was good.
So for cupcakes, what I did is I took these 3 cupcakes and I cut them into fourths, and then I put 1/4 on a piece of paper, traced it, measured it all out, plotted it in my calculator, and I got these equations. And here they are graphed. And my equations, and I took used the disk method to take the integral and find the volume of these cupcakes.
So then we baked a whole ton of cookies. I'm telling you, we baked like 100-some cookies. It was an unreasonable amount. But we wanted to see the differences the differences in diameter of cookies depending on how much flour we put into them. So some of the first ones we baked had half the recommended amount of flour. So we then put 3 of those on a sheet at a time, and we took them out of the oven and remeasured the diameter in centimeters every 2 minutes as they were baking, so we could see that change. We then took the average of all the ones that we were measuring, and that is the number that we used throughout there. The next cookies we made had the exact recommended amount of flour, and that is there. And then the next one had 1.5 times the recommended amount of flour. From there, I plugged those points into my calculator again, and I found that they were all, once more, quartic functions. So I placed those on the same graph so we could see the differences that really had, that the amount of flour really had on the increase in diameter. As you can see here, this is the one that had the least amount of flour, and that had the greatest increase in diameter throughout. This is the ones with the normal amount of flour, and this is the ones with too much flour. From there, I was interested to see the differences that it had on the rate of change of the diameter at different points. So we took and we found the derivatives of those 3 equations, and we plugged in a time at the very beginning of their baking cycle, in the very middle, and at the very end, and we found it interesting to compare those. So this is those measurements for the first batch of cookies, second batch, and the third batch. For the most part, these make sense, except for this one, which is negative. And you would think that a cookie should not be decreasing in size as it starts baking, but I'm choosing to believe that this is an error in that line of best fit, and maybe it just didn't fit our data quite right. So, all right. And this next discovery is possibly the most important that we found.
states that at one point the slope is equal to 0. When you have.
All right. And now we shall take a brief intermission before any questions, and we will give you food.
Yes. You can either have a cookie or cupcakes.
Do they have the right amount of flour?
You should. Would you like a cookie or a cupcake?
I want less flour because I want more cookies. That's not how it works.
There's a change in my area.
Wait, what's the
Can't
flavor?
So are you gonna eat like a pile of them like you did before?
Yep.
Or you two?
They are really good.
Normal cookies.
Yeah. What is that?
A shake.
Health shake? Make your hair grow thicker?
Sure.
Really?
No, probably not. It's just the guy who got messed
Yeah,
We're gonna have like 5 cookies a day. Like, I'm gonna have a full head of hair by the end of this.
I can start drinking right now. You're right, Joe.
Anyone
But
else
then
want a
you no
cupcake?
longer have an inverted relationship with
I don't know.
your parent anymore.
Anyone else want a cupcake?
Take another
What's your goal?
And Mr. Kruger, don't think we forgot about
What is that?
you. This is your special cupcake that we made specifically for you. I have to get it out and reset the part. So just don't. Yeah, okay.
Awesome. I love apples. You eat pork? I eat pork. You eat the whole bunch.
You eat the skin of a kiwi?
I eat the skin of a orange. Oh, I even got sprinkles on my apple.
Okay. Any questions?
Alrighty. Did you turn it off already?
No.
That's your cue.
You can now, because I think you're done, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.